A word about Proclus.
Yeah.
He's the one philosopher that is not read, is not studied, yet he's the only systematic philosopher produced out of the Europe tradition, Greek tradition. The ability to bring together the entire Platonic tradition and put it into words, to be able to reconcile all the dialogues into a unity, to be able to show Greek mythology can fit within it. So he rationalized Greek mythology. He showed Plato had a theology. He wrote commentaries on all the major dialogues. He made intelligible the Parmenides by line analysis. It's the only works that that capture the dialectic. He's the only one. All the other works are gone. But he demonstrated through many examples how the dialectic proceeds through its 24 categories very systematically. He developed that into a systematic exploration of any idea. And his dialectic, which everything he does is based upon, essentially is 8 categories times 3, which are 24. Statements you can say about something in itself. If there are things that you can say about itself, what are the consequences on others? If there is such a thing as a thing in itself and others, and the implications of this upon others, then you can also ask, what are the consequences upon these others upon itself? And what are the implications of those 3 back upon the particular thing in itself? Those are the basic 4 categories. And the denial of each of these generates another 4, so there are 8 categories. You can say anything about anything in respect to 3 kinds of judgments. You can say whether or not the thing you're talking about is true. You can say true things about it. You can say things that are not false about it. And you can say things that are both true and false. Therefore, you have 3 kinds of judgments for each class. There are 4 affirmative, 4 negative. Therefore, you can take the idea of likeness, soul, any idea, and explore it along these 24 categories, and you should be able to exhaust the intellectual content of each one of them. And he showed what kinds of ideas are naturally associated with each one of these stages, and that's the great dialectic of Platonic tradition. And he did that systematically in a work called the Parmenides, Commentary on Plato's Parmenides. It's a giant.
We kind of made Plato available.
On the highest intellectual level. On the highest intellectual level. Yeah, he pushed it on the highest level. He gave everybody who knows him and is familiar with his writings a particular interesting problem. And in a sense, it's a terrible problem. In exploring the Parmenides, he takes Plato's Parmenides line by line and shows the integrity behind each one of the sentences in terms of both itself and the whole, and to the key ideas in the work. And he systematically goes through the whole Parmenides this way. And he brings into it the whole Neoplatonic tradition that came before him, especially his teacher Cyrenius. So that in one work, therefore, we have literally 1,000 years of reflection on one dialogue, and you walk away from it, and you just have to come to the most amazing kind of question, which is, if they see this much profundity, it took 1,000 years to find this much profundity, put it all together, what kind of a mind must Plato have had to have crafted it with such precision that later someone systematically treating each sentence, both in itself as well as in respect to the other major ideas in the work, can find a unity to the whole thing, a very profound unity to the whole thing. So that's...
When did Proclus live? What time?
About 470 A.D.
Or just after Plato?
Yeah, 480.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nearly 1,000 years after Plato. Yeah, 900.
Yeah.
So the key scholars during his own time, by the way, a very interesting community at that time. The people who were most involved in Proclus's thought, and that's the highest metaphysical thought that I know of, were Ethiopians. In Ethiopia there was a group that were studying, and they were called the Greats, and Proclus mentioned several of them. Matter of fact, he talks about one, he said, he knows me better than I know myself. So they had a very interesting relationship with Ethiopia those days.
With the who?
Pardon me?
With the who? Who would the
Proclus.
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 Had a relationship with who?
The Ethiopians. Ethiopia plays a key role in Greek thought.
Oh, it does?
Oh yeah, and it's been buried by many commentaries or ignored. But as you can imagine, the opening lines in the Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, in both, which is the religious writings of the Greeks, or the spiritual writings of the Greeks, or the sacred tradition of the Greeks. In both cases, they talk about the gods visiting Ethiopia, and that's where they go to celebrate. That's where they go, as it were, for we would, I guess, call it a retreat. Yeah, a spiritual retreat. Poseidon does that in the Odyssey. And there's a very fine work called Black Athena, a 2-volume work, which I'd recommend to anyone getting into Greek thought, because that shows the relationship between Greek thought and Africa, especially Ethiopia, and Egyptian. I'll think of it in a moment, I'm not sure. I think that it's downstairs in the library, as a matter of fact.
What's the name of it again?
Black Athena.
Black Athena?
Yeah.
Well, certain groups of people say that the Greeks were very much influenced by the Egyptians.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yes. This goes a step, behind the Egyptians, of course, are the Ethiopians. And the whole origin of Greek tragedy emerged through Aeschylus. And the first great play of Aeschylus was dealing with the